Greetings, traveller. Here in the silence of this library, I uncover the most fascinating stories that have long been forgotten. Stay a while and listen, and I shall take you on a journey that has endured for centuries. Stories from Sanctuary. Chapter 1. The Spark in the Ashes. The world was broken, and hope was a rumour whispered by fools. I had grown up among the ruins of Chaldeum, where the wind carried the stench of ash and the cries of the lost. The Horadrim, once legends, were now little more than caretakers of dust and memory. I was Elias, apprentice in name, errand boy in truth, and I spent my days in the archives, cataloguing the relics of a brighter age. The archives were a labyrinth of cracked marble and splintered wood, the air thick with dust and regret. Sunlight filtered through shattered stained glass, painting the floor in fractured rainbows. I loved it here, among the ghosts of greatness, even as the world outside crumbled further each day. Sanctuary had become a place of mourning, the aftermath of the last great cataclysm leaving cities hollow and fields barren. Demons still prowled the night, and the people clung to survival with white-knuckled desperation. The elders said the Horadrim's time had passed. We were to keep watch, to remember, to endure. But I was young, and the ache for something more burned in me like a fever. It was on a day like any other, as I sifted through a collapsed shelf in the deepest part of the archive, that I found it. A scrap of parchment, brittle as old leaves, inked in a hand I did not recognize. The script was ancient, curling and elegant, the words barely legible. When the night is deepest, seek the Unbound Star. In its light, the world may heal. My heart hammered in my chest. I turned the parchment over, searching for more, but the rest was lost to time. Still, the words echoed in my mind. The Unbound Star, a promise of healing, of hope, when all else was lost. I hurried to Elder Malachi, the oldest and sternest of the council. He sat in the council chamber, hunched over a ledger, his face a map of lines and shadows. I thrust the parchment at him, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. Look, Elder, I found something. It speaks of the Unbound Star, of hope. Could it be real? He took the parchment, his eyes narrowing as he read. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his expression, fear, or perhaps pain. Then his face hardened. Forget this, he said, voice low and sharp. There is nothing here for you, Elias. Nothing but pain. I stared at him, stunned. But, Elder, it speaks of healing, of light. Isn't that what we need? He slammed the parchment down, the sound echoing in the silent chamber. You do not understand what you meddle with. The past is a graveyard, and some things are buried for a reason. Let it go. He turned away, shoulders hunched, as if my words were knives. I stood there, stunned, until Master Anya entered. She was younger than Malachi, her hair silver, but her eyes sharp. She glanced at the parchment, then at me, and her expression softened. Elias, there are wounds that cannot be healed by hope alone, she said gently. Some things are best left forgotten. I tried to argue, but she shook her head, her gaze distant. Please, Elias, trust us. But I couldn't. Not when the world was dying. Not when hope, however faint, had found me. That night, I returned to the archives. The halls were silent, the only sound my own footsteps echoing off the stone. I searched for hours, piecing together fragments, half-legible notes, and faded maps. Each clue pointed to something hidden, something lost in the north, beyond the shrouded peaks. The elders' anger only fueled my conviction. If they would not help, I would go alone. The next morning, I tried once more to speak with Malachi. He would not see me. The other elders avoided my gaze, their coldness a wall I could not breach. Even the other apprentices, once my friends, grew distant, their eyes sliding away when I entered a room. I was alone, but I did not care. I had a purpose now. In the days that followed, I gathered what I could: maps, supplies, scraps of lore. I found references to the Unbound Star in the most unlikely places. A line in an old hymn, a symbol carved into the base of a ruined statue, a half-burned letter from a Horadrim long dead. Each piece fit together, forming a path that led ever northward. The elders watched me with cold eyes, but they did not stop me. Perhaps they thought I would give up, or perhaps they simply did not care. But I saw the sorrow in their faces, the way their hands trembled when they thought I was not looking. I did not understand it, not then. "I will bring hope back to Sanctuary," I whispered. "I promise." I did not see the shadow in the doorway, the figure watching me with eyes full of grief. I did not hear the prayer whispered for my soul as I slipped into the night, parchment clutched to my chest like a talisman. The shrouded peaks loomed in the north, wreathed in perpetual storm. The path was uncertain, the dangers many, but I was undeterred. I was Elias of the Horadrim, and I would find the Unbound Star. I would bring hope to a world that had forgotten how to dream. If only I had known what hope would cost. Chapter 2: The Flicker and the Frost. The days after my discovery blurred together, each one colder than the last. The world outside the Horadric archives was grey and hollow, but within, I felt a fire burning, a secret warmth I could not share. I no longer saw the archives as a mausoleum. Now every shadowed alcove, every brittle scroll, seemed to pulse with hidden promise. I spent my waking hours hunched over ancient tomes, piecing together fragments of lore and legend. The elders no longer offered guidance. Their presence was a chill wind at my back. When I passed them in the corridors, they turned away, their faces drawn and pale. Even the other apprentices, once my friends, grew silent in my presence, their laughter dying whenever I entered a room. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was jealousy or fear of the unknown. But as the days passed, the isolation grew heavier. Meals in the Great Hall became a trial. Conversations ended when I approached. Even Master Anya, who had once encouraged my curiosity, now avoided my gaze. I caught her watching me sometimes, her blind eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The more they withdrew, the more feverishly I worked. I became obsessed with the Unbound Star, its meaning, its history, the path it beckoned me to follow. I found references to it scattered through the oldest Horadric texts, always couched in riddles and half-truths. When the moon is swallowed and the world is ash, the star shall rise unbound. Only the hand unclouded may bear its light. In the shadow of the peaks, the heart of hope beats yet. I mapped every mention, tracing lines across brittle parchment, connecting dots that may never have been meant to meet. I slept little, ate less, my mind consumed by the puzzle. I began to see patterns in the dust, hear whispers in the silence of the archives. Sometimes I dreamed of a great light shining in the darkness, calling to me with a voice like my mother's, promising peace, promising an end to the endless night. But always, when I woke, the cold was waiting. The elders' eyes followed me, haunted and hollow. I heard them whispering in corners, their voices low and urgent. Once, I caught a fragment as I passed. "He's too young. He doesn't understand. There's nothing we can do now. The die is cast." I tried to confront Elder Malachi, to demand answers, but he would not see me. His door remained shut, the light beneath it flickering late into the night. Master Anya was no better. When I found her in the library, she shook her head before I could speak. "Some paths must be walked alone, Elias," she said softly. "Some answers cannot be given." I left her then, anger and confusion warring in my chest. Why would they not help me? Why did they fear hope? Did they truly believe Sanctuary was beyond saving? The more they resisted, the more determined I became. I pored over every scrap of lore, every faded map, every half-remembered song. I found mention of a hidden path through the shrouded peaks, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. The Unbound Star, it seemed, was not a thing, but a place, a sanctuary within sanctuary, where the light of creation still burned. I began to prepare in secret. I gathered supplies, dried meat, a flask of water, a battered sword from the armory. I copied the most important passages from the texts, tucking them into my pack alongside the original parchment. I told no one of my plans, not even the apprentices who still smiled at me when they thought the elders weren't looking. As the day of my departure approached, the atmosphere in the archives grew heavier. The elders watched me with eyes full of sorrow. The apprentices whispered behind my back, their voices tinged with fear. Even the walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing deeper with each passing night. On the last evening, as I packed my things in the dim light of my cell, Master Anya appeared in the doorway. She stood there for a long moment, her face unreadable. "Are you sure this is the path you want, Elias?" she asked quietly. I hesitated, the weight of her gaze pressing down on me. "It's not about what I want," I said. "It's about what Sanctuary needs. If there's even a chance." She nodded, cutting me off. "Then go with the blessing of the Horadrim. And remember, hope is a fragile thing. Guard it well." She pressed something into my hand, a small, smooth stone, warm to the touch. "For luck," she said, and then she was gone. I left before dawn, slipping through the silent halls like a ghost. The city was still, the sky a pale grey. I did not look back. As I passed through the gates, I saw Elder Malachi watching from the shadows. He said nothing, but his eyes followed me long after I had disappeared into the mist. The road ahead was uncertain, the dangers many. But I was undeterred. I was Elias of the Horadrim, and I carried hope on my back and in my heart. I did not see the tears on Malachi's face, nor hear the prayers whispered for my soul as I vanished into the dawn. Chapter 3: through shadowed peaks. The world beyond Chaldeum was a wasteland, where once the trade roads bustled with life, now only silence reigned. The sky was a bruised, unending twilight, and the wind carried the scent of old fires and distant rot. I pressed northward, following the broken lines of ancient maps and the scattered hints from the archives, each step carrying me further from the warmth of memory and deeper into the unknown. The shrouded peaks rose before me after days of hard travel, jagged and black against the horizon, their summits lost in perpetual storm. The path was treacherous, choked with scree and twisted roots. My boots slipped on frost-slick stone, and more than once I nearly tumbled into the ravines that split the earth like old scars. Yet I pressed on, driven by the promise of the Unbound Star, a hope that burned brighter with every hardship. Nights were the worst. I would huddle beneath a battered cloak, the fire little more than a flicker against the encroaching dark. In those hours, the silence was absolute, broken only by the distant howl of some unseen beast or the shifting of stones in the wind. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of a great light shining in the darkness, calling my name in a voice that was both familiar and impossibly ancient. Sometimes I saw things in the shadows, figures moving just beyond the edge of the firelight, their faces hidden, their eyes glinting with sorrow. Once, I woke to find a woman standing at the edge of my camp, her hair silver and her eyes blind. She spoke no words, but I felt her gaze upon me, heavy with warning. When I blinked, she was gone. The journey grew harder as I climbed higher. Food ran low, and the cold bit deep. My hands cracked and bled, and my breath came in ragged gasps. Yet I could not turn back. Each hardship felt like a test, a trial I must endure to prove myself worthy of hope. I remembered Master Anya's words. Hope is a fragile thing. Guard it well. I clung to them, repeating them like a prayer as I pressed on. On the fifth night, as a storm raged around my tiny shelter, I was visited by a vision unlike any before. I found myself standing in a great hall, its walls lined with burning braziers. At the far end stood a figure robed in gold, his face hidden in shadow. "Elias," he called, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Why do you seek the Unbound Star?" I tried to answer, but my tongue felt heavy, my thoughts muddled. "To bring hope," I managed, "to heal the world." The figure stepped forward, and I saw that his eyes were filled with fire. "Hope is a blade, boy. It cuts both ways. Are you willing to bleed for it?" I nodded, though fear gnawed at my heart. "I am." He raised a hand, and the hall dissolved into darkness. I woke with a start. The storm gone, the world eerily still. My fire had burned to ash, but the stone Anya had given me glowed softly in my palm, warm against the chill. The next day, I found the path I'd been searching for, a narrow trail winding up the mountainside, marked by ancient runes half buried in snow. I followed it, my steps growing surer as the air grew thin. The visions continued as I climbed. Sometimes I saw my mother, her arms open in welcome. Other times, I saw the elders, their faces twisted in grief. Always, I felt the presence of something vast and watchful, waiting just beyond the veil. On the seventh day, I reached a plateau high above the world. There, nestled between two black spires, stood a stone archway, carved with symbols older than any I had seen. Beyond it, a narrow bridge spanned a chasm filled with swirling mist. At the far end, A single star burned in the darkness, bright, unbound, impossibly beautiful. My heart soared. I had found it, the Unbound Star. As I stepped onto the bridge, the wind howled around me, carrying voices both familiar and strange. I heard the laughter of friends long lost, the prayers of the elders, the cries of the dying. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of all sanctuary pressed down upon me. At the center of the bridge, I paused, looking back at the path I had traveled. I saw it all. The archives, the coldness of the elders, the loneliness of the road. I understood in that moment that I could not turn back. I was too far gone, too changed by what I had endured. I crossed the final span and stood before the star. Its light washed over me, warm and blinding. I reached out, my hand trembling, and touched its surface. Visions exploded behind my eyes. 1,000 lives, 1,000 sacrifices, all bound together by hope and pain. I saw the elders, young and proud, building the prison that held the darkness at bay. I saw others like me, drawn by the promise of hope, each one walking the same path, each one vanishing into the light. But the truth remained just out of reach, veiled in brilliance. I fell to my knees, weeping with relief and exhaustion. "I am here," I whispered. "I am ready." The star pulsed, and the world fell away. Chapter 4. The Light That Consumes. Light. It was all I could see, all I could feel. A radiance so pure and fierce it seemed to strip away my flesh, my thoughts, my very name. I floated in a sea of brilliance, weightless and unmoored, the memory of my journey receding like a half-remembered dream. The Unbound Star pulsed before me, vast and alive. Its surface shimmered with shifting images, faces, places, moments of joy and sorrow, all woven together in a tapestry of hope. I reached out, my hand trembling, and the star answered, its warmth flooding through me. I felt myself unraveling, each thread of my being drawn into the light. For a heartbeat, I panicked, clutching at the tatters of myself. But then the voices began, a chorus of whispers, gentle and sorrowful. "Welcome, Elias," they sang. "You have come far." I tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but my voice was lost in the radiance. Instead, the star spoke to me, not in words, but in memories. I saw the archives, the elders' haunted faces, the sorrow in their eyes. I saw the path I had walked, the trials I had endured, the visions that had guided me. I saw the others who had come before me, each one drawn by hope, each one consumed by the same light. And then, at last, I understood. The Unbound Star was not a source of healing. It was a prison, a cage built long ago by the Horadrim to contain a darkness too great to be destroyed. The prison's power was not eternal. It needed to be renewed, not by magic or stone, but by the willing sacrifice of a soul unclouded by doubt, a soul filled with hope. That was why the elders had turned cold, why their eyes had filled with grief. They had known, as their predecessors had known, that the one who found the clues, who followed the path, who believed most fiercely in hope, would be the one to pay the price. Me. I felt the light burrow deeper, searching for the last fragments of resistance. I tried to pull away, to scream, but the star's warmth was inexorable, gentle, and final. My memories flickered past, my mother's smile, the laughter of friends, the silent halls of the archives. All of it was drawn into the light, woven into the prison's walls. In that final moment, as myself unraveled, I saw the elders gathered in the council chamber, their heads bowed in mourning. I saw Malachi clutching the old parchment, tears streaking his face. I saw Anya whispering a prayer for my soul. And I forgave them. They had not chosen this fate for me. They had only borne the burden of knowing, of watching hope become sacrifice, again and again. The cycle was cruel, but it was the only thing that kept the darkness at bay. As the last of me slipped away, I felt a strange peace. The world would endure for a little while longer. Sanctuary would know hope, even if it was born of sorrow. The light faded, and I was gone. Far below, in the shattered halls of the Horadrim, the elders felt the change. The darkness pressing at the edges of the world receded, beaten back by a sacrifice no one would ever know. The archives were silent, save for the soft weeping of those who remembered. On a windswept plateau beneath the shrouded peaks, the Unbound Star burned a little brighter, its prison renewed by the soul of one who had believed. And somewhere, in the quiet places of Sanctuary, hope flickered once more. The story has come to an end. Our hearth still burns. Stay, warm yourself, and let sleep take you as the world drifts into silence.